Patricia couldn't be here right now, so I'm doing the job for her. But I started up Oslo C User Group back in 2007, I think it was. So I have done this a few times before, but Patricia has done it the last 6-7 years. And what we are doing today is a book launch. Our own Anders Knatten has released a book. It kind of feels a bit like someone in the family has done something great. Because we have been together in Oslo C User Group. I looked in my email and saw that because back in the days, you had to be accepted into the group. It wasn't an open, you couldn't just sign up and then you were a member. So the email from you to be accepted to Oslo C User Group was 29th of December 2009. So, and then we met at the meetup a few weeks after, and has been hanging around together since then. But this is a book launch, and I have learned that on book launches, you sit down, you put on your glasses, clear your throat, and then start reading from the book. We are not going to read the whole thing, of course, but I'm going to read for a few seconds, and then I will pass it over to you. And this is from the foreword of the book, written by me, by the way. I first met Anders Knatten at local C++ meetups here in Oslo way back. Since then, we have been friends, hanging out when we meet at conferences. Anders has given presentations at C++ focused conferences such as ACCU, NDC TechTown, CPPCon, C++ on C, and Meeting C++, to mention a few. And when I attend one of his talks, I always learn something new. Anders can speak for hours about how integers really behave, or about all the stuff that happens before main is invoked, or how to use debuggers effectively. He also has this fascinating ability to observe something, adapt it, reshape it, and then take it to the next level. And this was exactly what he did after attending a couple of my infamous C++ pub quiz sessions. Then Anders soon went off to create this wonderful site, cppquiz.org, and now he's running his own much improved version of C++ pub quiz sessions at conferences. And with this book, Anders is taking his concept even further. Now, you can take over and put on your glasses if you need, and clear it throat.
Yeah, I need glasses apparently, but I don't have glasses, but I'll read them anyway. So I've also been to a couple of book launches and seen people read from books, and those have not been technical books, but we'll try to do that and do a chapter from the book. So yeah, the book is called C++ Brain Teasers, so it's a quiz book that's 100 and something pages, but it's only 25 quiz questions in all of those pages. So the main content is the explanation, telling you like how does this thing actually work, why does it work that way. So and giving you some tips for how to write better code or use some better tools to avoid some of the problems that are maybe highlighted in some of the questions. So I'll just switch for the stream here, and then we will do one of the puzzles in the book. So this is puzzle 3 called Hack the Planet. I just went to Patricia's really cool hacker workshop, or insecure coding in C++, I think it was called. Yeah, and I think this one is actually inspired from one of your old slide decks with John. So yeah.
The infamous stuff I was talking about.
Yes. Let's just do this together. Here's the code, and this is like all the puzzles in the book are complete programs, and the idea is you try to guess what the output of the program is. And what does the standard say? Actually the book is C++ 20, but it wouldn't matter if it was 23. What does the standard say the output should be? But there could be undefined behavior or implementation-defined behavior, and then you have to figure out what actually happens in practice as well. And then if you can also think a bit about what's actually going on here, then that's extra points, I would say. So I'll just leave this up for a little while.
And feel free to discuss among yourself. The buzzing in the audience will be very nice sound.
Yeah. Oops, not the book. Skal vi se hvor det funker. Ja, var det.
All right. Now let's hear from the master himself.
Right, so the way the book works is that then when you turn the page, it gives you the answer, which in this case is that the program has undefined behavior. But it might display the following output: did task 1 and did task 2. So then I'll try to read the discussion, and I'll put the code back up so you can see what's, you can refer to the code. The variable ID in function restricted task 2 has not been initialized and has an indeterminate value. To use its value is undefined behavior. Anything can happen when a program runs into undefined behavior. The C++ standard makes no guarantees. Even the part of the program that happened before we took ID's value is undefined. However, if you run this program on your own computer, it will probably print both did task 1 and did task 2, at least if you compile without optimizations. So the value 1337 magically teleported from restricted task 1 to restricted task 2. How could this happen? Most systems use a stack for local variables. Restricted task 1 has a local variable ID, which it sets aside space for in its stack frame. As it happens, restricted task 2 has the same number and types of local variables, one int, so its stack frame layout will be identical to restricted task 1's. And then there's a figure here. When in main, the stack will have grown to a certain point. See the leftmost illustration in the following figure. We then call restricted task 1, the stack grows, restricted task 1 sets aside space in its stack frame for ID, and initializes ID to 1337. Then control returns to main, and the stack shrinks again. Next, we call restricted task 2. The stack grows again, and restricted task 2 sets aside space in its stack frame for ID, but doesn't initialize it. However, restricted task 2 stack frame ends up in the exact same place as restricted task 1 stack frame. The stack isn't cleared between function calls, so the contents of restricted task 2 stack frame will be exactly as restricted task 1 left it, including the value 1337 in the position of the local variable ID. This causes ID to be 1337 in both functions. If you turn on optimizations though, restricted task 1 and restricted task 2 are likely to be inlined into main, and the stack is not used for these calls. You can try this yourself by compiling with -02, GCC and Clang, or /02 for MSVC. On my x86-64 Linux machine, GCC prints did task 1 with 02, whereas Clang segfaults. What happens on your machine? So that's the discussion, and then in most of the chapters there are some advice to be had as well. So avoiding uninitialized variables. To avoid nasal demons, security holes like this one, and garbage data in general, you should always initialize your variables before using them. It's easy to slip up, but help is to be had. First of all, always compile with warnings. GCC, Clang, and MSVC will warn you about this particular case, as will tools like Clang Tidy. But that's only because it's straightforward to prove that ID is uninitialized when it's used. Often we can't know this until runtime. This is where sanitizers come in. Different sanitizers exist for different purposes, but all monitor your code at runtime in various ways to detect problems that can't be detected at compile time. One such sanitizer is memory sanitizer, which is designed to catch usages of uninitialized memory. If you run this program with memory sanitizer, pass -f_sanitize memory as a compiler option to Clang, it will print something like this. It tells you that you're using uninitialized memory and gives you a stack trace to where it happened. Sanitizers can make your programs much slower, so you typically want separate build configurations with sanitizers. A sanitizer can only detect an issue if that actually occurs at runtime, though, so make sure to run as much of your test suite as possible with this build. And then there's some recommendations at the end for like warnings, and yeah, your IDE probably integrates with client ID, at least C-Line that I use does that just out of the box, and yeah, some recommendations and some further reading, one of which is the Deep C and C++ slides that Olve and John Dreger made quite a while back, but those are really cool.
2012.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what a chapter looks like, and then our 25 chapters. And on the website of the book, you can download 3 chapters as well as just like a PDF. You don't have to sign up or like any bullshit with emails or anything. Just get the PDFs for free.
I think that reading needs a big applause. Boy, I wish someone could read like that when I grew up and bedtime, going to bed. Yes?
Anders,
Yeah?
you have a chance to give out a second version of this book, because the upcoming standard of C++ 26, this is no longer undefined behavior. It is erroneous behavior now.
Okay. That's I'm going to repeat it to this massive audience that we have on YouTube. And for the rest of you that maybe not heard it, but apparently this is being worked on. And I'm quite sure that you will update the book when the new standards come out, if I know you correctly.
Yeah.
I also update my slides after the standard is out. But that's really nice to hear.
Yes, we're actually porting cppquiz.org is currently being ported to 23. So that's a big effort, but I'm getting some great help from the community to do that. So in a couple of weeks, that will have like all the explanations on the website will refer to the 23 standard. And then, yeah, when we get the erroneous thing, then it's going to be even harder to explain stuff. Now you have like the erroneous and the undefined and the implementation defined and the unspecified and the well-defined and like, yeah.
We take one more question.
Smart aleck question. Don't stacks scroll down?
Yeah, so the question is, doesn't the stack grow downwards? So on x86, at least the stack grows downwards, but it's easier to visualize with like the stack going in that direction. But it's quite confusing with the stack growing downwards, and then actually your data goes the other way. They go like back into the stack, and yeah. Anyway.
All right. So now we are going into this interview mode, and I have been told and learned that we should start with something completely different. So, Anders, who are you, and what is your story?
Yeah, I'm Anders. I'm from Oslo and the surrounding area. Been working professionally as a programmer since 2001. Done lots of different things like PHP and Java and C# and server admin things and all sorts of things. A little bit C++ on and off during those years, but since 2018 it's been mainly C++ at least. Yeah, so I like doing that. I think it's lots of cool stuff that's being done with C++, so it's a fun language to be in. And yeah.
Yeah. So, what inspired you to write this book?
So, I didn't really intend to write this book. It was like, this is out on the Pragmatic Programmers, and they have a Brain Teasers series. So you have like Python and Rust and Go and Pandas and like several things, and they were looking for someone to do the C++ version. And then Frances Bontempo of ACCU had just written a book for them, and she introduced us, also me, to the publisher. And the reason that happened is because of my cppquiz.org website. So I guess I could rather say what inspired me to
All right,
do that.
That's the next question. What
Okay,
inspired you? No, it isn't. But what inspired you for cppquest.org?
Yeah, so again, I went to a couple of your pub quizzes at the ACU conference.
I'm not fishing for compliments though, but yeah. So, all right, yeah. Tell me more.
Yeah, so like I found that was cool, and then I figured so we hung out in the bar, and I think probably John Lakos had handed out beers to people, as he does. And like I was a little bit drunk in my hotel room, and I figured out I have to make a website that does this thing. So I like kind of drunk coded the first thing, and then finished it on the plane and on the train back to Norway, and then like had like a. So the source code for the site is really bad. It's like really badly written Python, but it works. It's been working for a while, and yeah. Then I started doing it, and I just kept doing that, and yeah, now there's a site, and I do quizzes at this conference as well.
You should, is there like 200 quizzes or something like that on the cppquiz.org?
Yes, yeah, probably something like that, around 200.
You should all have a look at that site. A CPP quiz per day keeps the debugger away, or something like that. There is also a mobile app for it.
Yeah, so there was like for a long time a GitHub issue saying there should be an app, and then Sergey Vasilchenko just made the app, so I didn't have to do it, so that was great. He is also a tech reviewer of the book, by the way. But yeah, there's an app that you can use if you like commute and don't have good reception.
Talking about tech reviewers, there are some more tech reviewers in the room here. Can you stand up and...
If you want to, you don't have to.
You don't have to.
You can wave if you want, but yeah.
Oh, Tom is a brave soul. There are several, though. There
Yeah.
are more. Yeah, all right, yeah. You have revealed yourself. Oh, yes.
Yeah, so actually most of the tech reviewers are in this room, and yeah, so Daniela Engert, Bjørn Faller, and Olve Maudal. Kartik Nisant, he is currently in Canada. Tom Schultz is over here. Tina Ulbrich is there. And then Sergey, I mentioned, is in Sweden, and Piotr Wysensky is over here. So yeah, most of the people are here, so that has been very, very nice to have good technical reviewers. And I don't think we've had a single errata item yet, so thanks for the help.
And it's also nice to have someone to blame when people are angry at the quiz and say, oh, you can't do that. I don't write code like that. I don't need to learn this. Which
Yeah.
is a very common response, but hopefully not too common in this room because we care for the language and so on.
Yeah, like I don't write code like no, you don't write code like we just saw here, but like in a program that is 1 million lines long, you probably have some code like this somewhere.
And you also need to understand it in order to avoid it.
Yeah, so if you understand this thing, then maybe you can like recognize pattern. That was what I'm trying to do here. So maybe the examples are small, but maybe you learn to recognize some patterns or ways to think about things when they happen in real life. I would say. And people do write really bad code. So as I mentioned, I was in Patricia's like insecure coding in C++ workshop, and we looked at Heartbleed. And that was, we were just, here's the code, fix it. That was like the exercise, and it was impossible for me to fix it. Like, it was super hard code, but like the issue was like a standard, like you have the wrong length for a string and you copy it, and like it's, so like if you've learned to recognize those things, maybe it's helpful when you are in a larger real code base.
So since you have hundreds of quizzes to choose from, how did you pick those 25? That must have been kind of hard.
Yeah, so many of the questions here have not been published on the website yet either, because I wanted there to be something new as well. And so that the thing I try to, like okay, I can start with like, there's lots of weird stuff on the website, and I didn't want the book to be full of like super weird corner cases. So I just made a Python script that just made one page with all the questions, and then I just like read through everything and found things that are like, okay, this is actually useful to know. And then I try to organize it in a way so that like chapter 4 builds on chapter 3, and you learn things. Yes, also Sander Williams, my editor for the book, was really great at that, like saying maybe if you explain this thing first and then the other thing after, then it's easier. Like that was speaking of people to editors and reviewers. But yeah, try to pick something that teaches you something useful, and that's not as hard as on the website.
Yep. And I would actually add that I think the book is kind of a masterpiece because by just asking these questions first, you have an excuse for immediately going into the interesting discussions. Like for example, named return value optimization versus unnamed return value optimization. How you can do that in just a few paragraphs. You can lead up to and then allow yourself to discuss it. Most other books, they skip that kind of things. That's what you have to read and discuss other places. There are very few books that cover deep, advanced C++ in the same way as this book. So I read through it for the third time yesterday. And as usual, I just learned so much when I read through that particular book again. So what was your writing routine? As you can guess, I have been looking on the internet to kind of, what do book interview people talk about? So what was your writing routine like?
Yeah, so I had 2 weeks off between jobs, so I just wrote a lot during that time. And then I had a new job in a CPU design company, and I don't really know much about that, so lots of stuff to learn, and 2 kids and everything, so I don't have a lot of time to write. So the thing is, like, always, when there's an hour, write something, and maybe it's good, maybe it's not good, so you just throw it out. But yeah, so the routine was basically try to write when there is some time, and then also be smart about tasks, because there's a lot of like feedback from the editor, and then like, okay, now I have 20 minutes on the train, so I can like do some of the quick review stuff, and then now I need to actually sit down and think, and I can do that when I have a few hours. And walking is helpful, I think. Yeah, just walking or taking a shower or stuff. Like, yeah.
You have any? How much time did you spend on writing the book, approximately? Or?
Yeah, I intentionally never logged my hours, because like you're never gonna earn money on a C++ quiz book. That's not. So yeah, I don't know, but if I were to guess, somewhere between 1 or 2 months full time, maybe, or something. I don't know, but the process took like a year, because things like most of it was like in half a year, and then like stuff. There's like someone actually made an index for this book, so they went through all the book and like inserted like tags into where our topics discussed, and that doesn't look like the most exciting job, but that's like someone is doing this professionally for technical books, and then I had to review the index, and like so lots of like extra stuff after the actual writing. That was not very fun, but had to be done.
I guess there are several in this room that at some point have thought, maybe I should write the book. Do you have any recommendations for us, including myself?
Do it if you want to write the book. I think that's the, yeah. Don't do it because, or like if you're a famous person and you write like a very, I'm sure like Scott Myers probably actually earn money on those kinds of books, but like I have another book that I'm thinking about writing, and it's never going to be make a profit either. But like if you like to do it, and then either find like a proper publisher with a good editor that you can collaborate with, such as like the pragmatic programmers have, or self-publish. There are lots of like smaller kind of shady publishers that will like happily take half the money from your book, but not really put in an effort. Yeah, I've heard some rumors from people in this room that have been like reviewing some of those books, and yeah, so either find a reputable publisher or self-publish. And
yeah, and you ended up publishing on PragProg.
Yeah.
Was a particular reason for that?
Just because they were looking for someone to do the book, and then yeah.
All right.
So that's why. But yeah, it was a nice experience, and so the pragmatic programmers, that's the publisher started by the guys behind the pragmatic programmer, the book. So I actually got support from Dave Thomas, like with some issue with some Java stuff in the repository, like post on that again, like he's involved. So I was like, ooh, I got help from him. It's like a bit cool for me, because the pragmatic programmer was a very important book for me when it came out, at least.
Yeah. And you mentioned don't do it for the money. Bjarne Strøstrup also told me once, don't do it for the money. He indicated that he don't earn much money on the books either.
Okay.
So I guess you will not be rich by this book.
I'll further lower my expectations.
So who knows? Is there, looking back, is there anything you would have done differently?
I don't really think so. I think like it went fine. Yeah, I haven't even thought about it. So like the book is done. Yeah.
Since I'm not a professional interviewer, but I guess you have understood this already. I think I would like to open up for a question to our fantastic author here now. Anyone would like to dare asking a question or contributing? Yes.
When's the sequel coming out?
When is I'm repeating the question. When is the sequel coming out?
No concrete plans for a sequel, but it would be like sort of trivial thing to do. It's a lot easier to write this kind of book because you just have to sit down and like come up with things and just churn through. It's probably, I would assume, a lot harder to write like if I was to write about like here's everything you need to know about move semantics or like something like that. Then yeah, but yeah, maybe.
Maybe the C++ library, Brain Teasers.
Yeah.
Kind of the C standard library, Brain Teasers, or something like that.
Yeah, that would be an idea.
Any other? Yes?
So, what kind of tools do you use to actually write? Do you write in Markdown, or use LaTeX, or God forbid, Microsoft Word?
I'm repeating the question. What kind of tools do you use?
So the pragmatic programmers, they have a like a proprietary tool chain, which is in the contract that I shouldn't share with people, but I think I can talk about it. So it's very much like writing mostly Markdown in whatever Vim or whatever you want to do, and then you can build the book locally, which is nice. So I can then all the time see how the book is actually going to look like. So that was one of the reasons they started the publisher back in the day, because they had to invent all these tools when they wrote the book. Because at that time, you wrote a long document and you sent it to someone when it was done, and then they typeset everything. But so they did a lot of invention, I think, for that back in the day. And I think they were also the first to like publish DRM-free ebooks, and they're doing lots of cool stuff back then. So yeah, mostly Markdown and then build it locally, and then at the end it goes to someone that makes sure that like the words are really nicely distributed at the end, and like the spaces don't follow a particular pattern down on the page because it looks strange to have like all of these things happen at the end, but those are just details at the end.
Yeah, we have room for maybe one more question or two more questions.
Or zero more questions.
Zero? I have a couple more, but
Okay.
we are not going to do this interview part very much longer, because we do actually have a special edition of some extra quizzes afterwards that we can have fun with. But yes, go for it.
Could you talk a little bit about the Oslo C Users Group?
Can we talk more about the Oslo C User Group? I will rephrase that, because this is about the book. It's about you. What has Oslo C Users Group meant for you and your growing up and your career?
Yeah, I think to me, it's like I joined I don't remember how I found Users Group. I joined it, met you, and you said, hey, you should come to ACU. And then I came to ACU, and then there were lightning talks, and I was like, I'll try to do a lightning talk. Hadn't done a talk before. And then I started, that's how I got started like speaking at conferences and stuff. So for me, the Users Group has been like a great way to just, starting doing that kind of thing. Unfortunately, there's not a lot going on in the user group. And we're always happy to, I'm not officially an organizer, but I'm involved. So always happy to organize something. So if you have an idea for a lightning talk or a full talk or something, then just please send it to the organizers at meetup.com, and we'll try to put an event together. And sometimes people organize events at their companies as well, like I did where I used to work, and Piotr did it at Qt. So please just suggest things. Or like you can also nominate others, like, hey, I saw this person from the area that gave this talk. Maybe she could speak at a meetup. And then we can reach out and say, hey, someone said you should speak. And yeah.
Maybe I can add something about Oslo C++ Users Group, because things are connected somehow. I think we started it in 2007. And when we started it, we said we are not going to have more than 3, maybe max 4 events every year. And we did that for 5-6 years, and then even that became a bit difficult. So we had like 2, and then 1, and then it was not too often. And then Patricia came in, and the frequency up to 1 or 2 or 3 per year again. But Oslo C++ User Group was also the reason why the NDC Oslo conference, they were hosting a C++ track. And I was organizing that C++ track for a couple of years before we realized this is big enough to create a conference. And that is why we started this NDC TechTown back in 2017, I think it was. And it was basically this is all the organizers and the C people that are doing it. I'm the program committee thingy, and Martin is also doing that together with me, leading the committee. But what we really tried to create here is a copy of the ACCU conference that you might know from the UK. So if you somewhat feel that it's a bit similar, that's not a coincidence when it comes to size, the format, and also the people and the content involved. So yeah, that's enough about Oslo C++ User
One more
Group
thing, you find it at meetup.com if you want to look for it. That's relevant information.
And we always have Tuesday evenings at the NDC TechTown, so like today. So we always have a meetup before the main conference part of NDC TechTown starts. All right, I'm going to round this off fairly soon, but on June 12th, you can find the picture. You posted a picture of yourself on Blue Sky. I'm not talking about X anymore. We are all on Blue Sky now, right? Yes? Everyone? Blue Sky? Come on. That's... No, it's Blue Sky. So you posted on Blue Sky with the title, I wrote a C++ book. How did you feel when you finally had the physical copy in your hand and could smell the book?
I felt like now I'm done writing the book. But yeah, no, it was nice. I had to smile for the picture, but mainly for like, cool, I've done that. Next, kind of, because I enjoy making a thing, but I don't go around like all giddy afterwards, I think. But, yeah, so yeah, I felt satisfied and happy.
You look pretty happy, no?
Yeah, I was happy.
All right, and the final question. I did actually ask ChatGPT as well. And decided I'm probably going to accept your answer on what should be the final question for this author. So, Anders, if this book were made into a movie, who would you cast as the main character?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like some like action superheroes maybe. But I think, yeah, if I were to pick, can I pick 2?
Yeah,
Yeah.
You can pick as many as you want.
Okay, that would be. I think his name is Johnny Lee Miller, and Angelina Jolie. 20 years ago, when they did the movie Hackers. If I could have those do the movie, that would be perfect.
And for this very large audience on YouTube, I would like to show the room while we give you an applause. Thank you very much. But we are not completely done yet. because now we are going to do a small bonus session. Because we have on the slide deck there, we do actually have several of those questions. So I will now lead one of my infamous type of C++ pub quiz sessions. And is there a particular one you would like to start showing?
Skal vi ta den hvor man kan diskutere litt, kanskje? Ja, det er så påvirking. Husker du tallet? Var det 22?
22, yeah. All right, drum roll. We are now going to look at question 20.
I'm skipping slides as fast as I can. Okay, here we go. Yeah, there we go.
All right, so this is the code. Actually, it's one of the few that I changed layouts like the parentheses and so on just to fit the slide. So it doesn't look like that in the book exactly. But the question here is, as always, what does it print out? Try to reason about the code, and here is something that I encourage you to do. Instead of trying to go directly to the answer and say, oh, please, blah, blah, blah. Try to force yourself into thinking, what's the kind of steps towards finding a solution on this? And feel free to discuss it with people around you. That would be wonderful if you do. So, start doing. Are you still recording, or?
Yeah.
They might see anything interesting now, so should we? Or shall we turn it around?
Vi sitter vel snart og snakker om det igjen, så da...
Then I will move back. Hello. All right. Now, without kind of directly saying the answer, some of you might have directly the answer. Can you help us to just give small hints in the right direction and try to contribute into a collective thinking now about this problem? So anyone would like to start helping us? Yeah?
There's a virtual function called the constructor.
There is a virtual call in the constructor. Yeah, that's a wonderful start. Just to highlight that is very useful. Credits for that, yes?
I was going to say the same.
All right, but that's also wonderful. Yeah, but it's less wonderful because it's a less type of wonderful. Yes, going.
The spaceship has a private get type, which might confuse.
Spaceship has a private. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's something to notice when you read the code. Most of the code actually uses struct instead of class in your book.
Yeah,
so
I think this is...
this is an errata?
That should say struct. It doesn't really matter, but that's
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Brilliant insight, and that's the stuff you should look for in quizzes. And we just found your first bug.
Yeah.
Yes?
Spaceship should implement the spaceship operator.
Spaceship should implement the spaceship operator. I like that one. That's a good one, yeah? All right, keep them coming. This is just shout them out.
Is it allowed to highlight more of the virtual function?
Is it allowed to
Highlight more of that version?
Yeah, I guess we can get some more...
Yeah.
I would say that spaceship is inherited from game object.
Spaceship inherits from game object, yes.
And when the creation happens, it's not fully constructed?
Ah, you are approaching an answer here now, I
Yeah,
think.
that's why I asked you.
Yeah, no, that's, yeah, let's start moving into an answer here.
Yeah.
Shall we do a kind of drum roll? Will this one move forward? Yeah, there. All right. So, what do we think the first line that will be printed out is? 3, 2, tell it to your neighbor. Say it to yourself. All right. Yeah. Created a game object. And the next thing. Created a game object. And the next thing. Rendered a game object. And the fourth thing is rendered the spaceship. Now, let's ask the master himself. How can we explain this?
Yeah, so you basically put us in the like the home stretch to the answer here that spaceship derives from game object. So the spaceship object will have a game object sub-object like the base class, and that one gets initialized first. But as you're initializing the base class, there isn't really a derived class yet because the base class doesn't know about it. The code isn't executing yet. It's not there. So you can't virtually call into it. But the follow-up then is so if you call a virtual function in the constructor and there's no derived class there yet, but it's a derived object that you're creating, so is that undefined behavior? Or is that fine? And yeah, the answer is that it is actually fine. In the constructor and in the destructor, you can call a virtual function. It will then just pretend like it's not virtual, kind of, and just use the correct one. So that's that question. And is Klaus here? Probably exhausted from the workshop. I guess there are people here who went to his workshop, so we could do a quick software design, because I think Klaus's talks and workshops are really important. Like software design stuff is really not highlighted enough, I think, at conferences and stuff. But which pattern is being used here? And I can dare to get. I think this is called the template method pattern. Since he's not here, he won't arrest me for. I think that's the name of this pattern, which is usually a nice way to extend functionality in like a classical OO fashion. But just be aware it doesn't work in constructors and destructors.
I think that worked out really well, so we should take one more. All right, Otgeir, do you have a
follow-up question?
Yeah.
Is it considered, it is allowed, but isn't it kind of bad to do this because it will confuse the reader and they might not know what happens?
Yeah, so
and what happens if it's a pure virtual? Will it then fail to compile?
If it's a pure virtual, you'll probably get a linker error, I think, in my experience.
I think it's runtime error.
Yeah, but I think I've seen actually linker errors as well for this when it's trying to build a V table or something. But didn't I test this? I think. But yeah.
I think I've seen on GCC.
It's
pure virtual function.
It's an undefined. Pure virtual function call. That's the one you get from GCC. But yeah.
I'm happy I made it so good.
I say you can expect to see either like a runtime failure or linker errors about the missing game object : get type definition. So maybe I got that on MSVC. I don't use that very often, so I just tested it.
Wait a second, I have a follow-up weird question.
Yeah.
Will it be performance will be okay? Will we use virtual table to call it, or the compiler will understand it when we call it directly?
Well, when everything fits on a slide, it will just inline everything. It will just say like return 0. But yeah, it depends and measure it and so on. But the question was, it's allowed to do it, but should you? And no, it's confusing.
All right, in the back there. Yeah, that's you. Yeah.
I was just going to say that I'm pretty sure that there's actually a title warning about doing this. That if that client title they wanted to write game object : get type to make explicit that it's actually the base class. you get and not virtual.
Yeah, so probably Clang Tidy. And I tested this on GCC and Clang, and they will actually, if you have a pure virtual function, they will tell you if you call them in constructors and destructors.
You will get the warning, I think it's of Clang Tidy
Yeah.
with this code.
So use Clang Tidy, but don't all use all the checks. Some of them are.
Okay, last question on this or comment?
Yeah, so I just want to be sure. I heard a fun name for this pattern. It's called Hollywood method.
Hollywood method.
Don't call us, we'll call you.
Ah, nice. All right, we are going to do one more. 11.
Okay.
You can prepare, and I go to 11.
Yeah.
All right, so let's buzz on this one. And once again, move slowly forward, discuss it with the people around you, try to reflect. What do you think Anders would write about these things, and why is this interesting in any way? Sorry if I put you off guard.
Ja, det går bra. Ja, det kan vi gjøre. Hvis ikke begynner å holde. Eller kanskje begynner å holde. Det er jo en full quiz i morgen.
Ja, men ta igjen til.
Ja.
All right. So we repeat the thing again. Anyone would like to kind of start by just giving a small hint in the right direction to help the rest of us to understand this in some way? Yeah, go for it.
Temporary materialization.
Temporary materialization. You were one of the reviewers.
Isn't that obvious?
All right, yeah, that's a good hint. Any other hints? In order to reason about this, the other reviewers, you can also add in, of course.
Is it allowed to mislead?
It's allowed to mislead and then see if they discover it.
The reference prolonged the lifetime.
Yeah.
Cost reference, or
the-
actual any reference. Right?
The reference prolongs the lifetime.
All right, yeah, I see a hand in the back.
There's almost no variables actually storing memory areas.
Say it a bit louder.
Sorry, there's almost no variables actually storing memory areas. They're all references. So there's a lot of invalid references that are immediately destructed.
Yeah, so something about like, I don't actually assign the results here to any variables that you can see in the code, but I still bind references. So what's going on here? I think that sums it up.
All right, anyone is brave enough to guess the first output from this code snippet? All right, anyone would like to shout out and really go out on the limb and say, that's going to be the first one? Yeah, I see a hand in the back there, very brave soul.
Free memory area 2.
Bound reference 1, but you get for braveness, and you are just wonderful, yes? Anyone would like to guess the next thing being written out? And you're the brave man over there.
Fruit reference 2.
Shout it out, even loud.
Fruit reference 2.
Nearly! It's very close. And then, who would like to guess the third thing being printed out?
Bound reference 3.
All right, you're also a brave man. I love how brave you are. And this is rest. Now, can we ask the master himself what is happening here?
Yeah, so the first thing is that, like, you shouldn't need to do, like, maybe, so, like, okay, so what's going on is when you bind the constrefs here to the temporaries that are returned by these functions, they persist to the end, so for the lifetime of that reference. So that's something that was probably useful at some point to just like make code nicer or something, or like maybe avoid a copy, or I don't know, but like when you have, yeah, so the functions here return by value, right? So if you, maybe you can just like create a temporary and bind the reference and you don't need to copy it, but like these days and like the last 15 years or I don't know, if you just don't put references and just put like normal objects, there would be no copies anyway because of like return value optimizations. So we don't really need this feature anymore, but we have this feature. If you bind a constref like this, the temporary persists for the lifetime of that reference. And normally an object gets destroyed at the end of the full expression. So you have like get memory 1 semicolon, and then like, after the semicolon, at the end of the a temporary gets destroyed at the end there. So like it should go away, but you bind the reference so it persists for the function. And that explains why the first one is actually surviving. And then you bind to a member. I didn't prepare for this question, so I'm not as well prepared. Then you bind to a member. So if you bind to a sub-object, then the same thing happens. You still extend the lifetime of that object. The full object, that's important. So you don't only persist like the member when you bind a reference to the member object here, number. The entire object gets its lifetime extended. And the same thing actually happens at the last one. So that one is also extended because you do get memory and you pass that into the data source constructor. So the data source constructor has a constref that binds to the result of get memory. So it persists for the lifetime of that reference. But that reference is only there in the constructor. So as soon as the constructor is done, that reference goes away, and now the object is no longer, you no longer have a reference to it. So that when the data source constructor is done, you don't persist the third temporary. So that's why that one gets freed early. And the important thing here, I think, is, so this chapter is referring to previous chapters about temporary materialization and return value optimizations and stuff. And it's also an example here of the range-based for loop thing. So if you like do for and then constref to a function that gives you a container, that container might go away before the for loop actually gets started. And that was an issue for a long time. I think Nico was the one who was really championing this fix. So that's explained here. We don't have a slide for that, but in 23 that problem has been fixed, but that's been an issue for a long time, and it's very easy to fall into that trap. And it's fixed in 23, but at least when the book went to print, none of the compilers had actually implemented that fix yet, so it's still dangerous.
We are just about to round off the whole session, but as an interviewer, I'm very proud now because I made you sweat a bit.
Yeah.
And interviewers are sometimes saying, "Oh, you are just too kind with the interview objects," and I could see things sweating here.
Yeah.
But I think you did really well.
Yeah.
But I guess you will also learn a lot when you read the book. I'm quite sure.
I try to make a point of, like, as related points. Like, when I give a talk, I know what I'm talking about in that talk. And I go, see, you gave a talk, and if you've never given a talk yourself, it's easy to think that, all these speakers, they know, like, all the speaker things. But that's not true. They know, I usually spend a week creating a 1-hour talk for this conference. So then, like, and now you can even see that even stuff I've written, I don't really remember. So, don't go around thinking that the speakers know everything. Because,
I will let you off the hook for this one, so you don't need to prepare much about this thing, because this is the last one I'm going to show, but it's once again illustrate that everything you can put on a page when it comes to C++ is rubbish. And so creating a quiz book is, it's really hard. But anyway, look at that one, reflect, discuss with the people around you. Let's hear some buzzing here, and then we do the thing. What will this print out? All right. So who would like to go out on the limb now and make a fool over yourself? Can I see? Yeah, you in the back.
Ruby still hello world because of the small string optimization.
Ah, interesting. Hello world because of small string optimization. That's completely wrong, but next one. Thank you very much. That's a wonderful insight.
It's a very smart idea.
Yeah, it's a super cool idea. Yes, there was someone in the front here, but
It's going to be a compiler warning.
it's going to be a compiler warning, you think? No, anyone agree with that?
But it should be yeah, it should be
All right. Okay, yes.
I can't really tell what it's going to be, but it's going to be valid, but in an unspecified state.
You know what? I think that ends this session. Of course, I'm going to show it, but that was such a beautiful answer. Can you repeat it one more time?
Yes, hello is going to be in a valid but unspecified state.
Exactly. And that is, it's quite common to think this is undefined behavior, but it isn't. This is what happened on my machine, also on your machine, obviously, because that's what you wrote in the book. But it could have been whatever. But this is an example of unspecified behavior. And therefore, you can't really have a warning about it either. So by that, thank you very much, Anders, for writing a great book. And thank you very much for being such a nice audience.